Good morning, everyone. My name is Zhuo, and I'm a PhD student from Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Today, I will present design analysis of additively manufactured TPMS lattice structures with hybrid topology. So this work was in the collaboration with Polyme. So this presentation will be divided into 4 sessions. First, I will be talking about background and motivations, and then the materials and method we use for this research, and followed by the results and discussion, and finally the conclusion. So let's look at the background and the motivations. So as we all know, AM technology has been used in numerous fields and has a lot of applications such as biomedical implants, automotive components, and constructions. And because of the technology, it unlocks the possibility of fabricating the complex structures such as lattice structures. As we can see from the images here, we have insole, we have the helmets, and also we have the joints for that real application. And for the lattice structures, in general, it can be classified into 3 categories. So struct-based, skeleton TPMS-based, and sheet TPM-based. So in this work, we will focus on the skeleton TPM-based, and we will choose those 2 structures, is gyroid and the TPMS Schwartz or primitive. So why are we choosing those 2 structures? Because for gyroid, it has a very high energy absorption, and also it has a strong load bearing capacities under the compression load. Also for the primitive, it has a very good strength and stiffness under the compression as well. So we want to combine those 2 structures and see how the mechanical response of that. So the background, the premises is adjusting the topological features towards the design of morphology lattice can offer a very high potential towards fine-tuned mechanical response. So the aim of this work is to understand associations between the unit cell topology arrangement and the overall mechanical response under the compression. So there are some critical issues that can affect the mechanical performance. If you see the images below, so one of them will be the thickness of the joints, and also the interface morphologies can affect the mechanical response. So materials and methods. So in this case, we have 4 categories for the arrangements. So first would be the linear transition along height. So basically we have the primitive structure on the top, and then the gyro structure at the bottom. Okay, the second would be the linear transition along the width. So we have the gyro structure on the left and the primitive structure on the right. And the third would be the diagonal transition. So we have a primitive on the structure on the at one corner, and also the gyro structure at the other corner. The last one would be the localized diagonal transition. So the primitive structure stays in the middle, and also the gyro structure stays at 2 corners of the structures. So all the designs work were done in the end topology, and would like to make sure that the transition area was smooth enough, so there was no abrupt surface change for the entire structure. So as I mentioned, there were 4 categories. The first would be the linear transition along the height. And the second will be the linear transition along the width. So in this case, we have 2 geometries, either with the horizontal waves on the surface for gyroid or the vertical waves. But it is important to know that the direction of the waves is not the key factor here. The key factor is the interface morphology is the different, as you can see from the images on the right. And also we have the diagonal transition, and also with the horizontal and the vertical waves. As you can see, the morphology of those 2 structures is the same. And also for the localized transitions, also we have different morphologies. So these are the process parameters we used to fabricate all the lattice structures. And we made several trials and errors to make sure all the specimens were printed in a decent shape, especially for the parameters for the retraction distance and the retraction speed, to make sure there was no oozing or straining of the specimen. So as you can see, all the fabricated specimens has pretty decent qualities without obvious defects. Let's go to results and discussion. So all the geometries have been tested with quasi-static compression from 0 to 50% of the string. As you can, and each geometry, we had at least 3 repetitive tests to make sure the consistency. As you can see, the consistency of every geometry is pretty decent. And you can see that the curve was the linear increase, and also the second stage where the stress stays almost the same. That's called the Pluto region, where the stress is stable. And then after reaching a certain strain, we call it densification point, then the stress increases non-linearly. And also a camera was also used to record the compression process to review the mechanical, review the compression behaviors. So for the first 2 uniform structures, gyro and the primitive, we can see that during the compression is basically uniform deformation. And for the linear height, as we can see, the gyro part start to deform first, and then the primitive part. And also for the linear transition with horizontal and vertical waves, we can see the overall there were both global uniform deformation, and the middle layer start to deform outwards horizontally. And for the diagonal structures, the interface region started to slide outwards during the compression process. And finally, for the localized structures, 2 interfaces started to slide. Also, the gyro part started to deform first and followed by the primitive part later. And these are the mechanical properties were calculated for every structures. As you can see, we had the stiffness, yield stress, first peak stress, as well as the energy absorption. And as we can see, the primitive has the best mechanical property, but it is not clear to just compare all the geometries together. So we need to separate into different groups to have a better or more clear comparison. So first was the linear transition along width. So in this case, we have 4 geometries, 2 uniform, and then the linear width with the horizontal and vertical waves. As you can see, both of the structure geometries, they display the higher load bearing capacities than gyro, but lower than the P. So it's both of them stayed in the middle. And also the LWH has lower stiffness, yield strength, and energy absorption compared to the LWB. Also, the second, we compared 2 uniform structures along and also with the structures along with height. So as I mentioned before, because these structures has a lower, because during the compression, the gyro part got deformed first and then followed by the primitive part. So this structure has a relatively short region, Pluto region, compared to the gyro and the primitive structure. And also for the energy absorption, because we calculate energy absorption up to 50%. So this structure has a lower energy absorption rather than the gyro, because it will only consider prior to the densification of the P structure. So, and again, for the diagonal transition, as you can see, those 2 curves are very similar, they're almost overlapping. So, because they have the same interface morphology, the only difference is the surface structure. So of them, they have very similar deformation mechanism, and both of them displayed the properties between G and P. And finally, we have the localized structures with for the comparison. So it can be seen that the LOCH has a higher stiffness, yield strength, and first peak than that, but a lower energy absorptions. And also, as you can see, for those two structures, the interface morphology is different. So it played a critical role for the mechanical response. This is we also have some numerical analysis for some of the structures. As you can see, the most stressed part for those structures are the joints of the structures as the compression goes. And this results aligned with the experimental results as well. And we also had the comparisons between the experimental and numericals, and there are certain degrees of the variations between that. So the discrepancy can be attributed to 3 facts. The first would be the personal internal facts during the fabrication, and also because it's FDM process, so it has a high surface roughness, and also for the numerical models, the definition of the material properties in the model will vary the value of the result. And conclusions. So as we can see, the arrangement of the unit cell has the critical roles in determining the mechanical properties of the lattice structure. And also the direction of the gyro waves, either horizontal or vertical, is important, but the real reason behind that is the different interface morphologies can affect the mechanical properties. And also there is a high association between the mechanical response and the orientation of the contact interface. Either it's parallel or perpendicular or to a certain angle. So when the contact interface is parallel to loading directions, the mechanical properties tends to be the largest. And also the numerical results aligned with the experimental observation. Both results point out the critical points of those hybrid structures. And finally, further research can be exploited for other potential arrangements beside the 4 arrangements we have done before. So it can be exploited for different other arrangements as well. And thank you for your attention. And if you're interested in this work, please scan the QR code. And this work has already published in the Journal of Engineering Structures. Thank you very much.
Very interesting talk. Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker?
Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I'm mainly curious about how you did the interface between the 2 structures. I know that in that software, there's some options like you blend the geometry somehow. And I would also like to know if you, if there are any restrictions of your geometry, like you set the unit cell size as identical, something else.
Yeah. Thank you. So the software we use to design the structure is called N topology. So it's a software specifically used for designing lattice structures, and it's very easy to design structures like that. The only issue we challenge because we have to merge those 2 uniform structures together. So either primitive or the gyro. So the point is, so when we had the first design, so there were some abrupt changes in the interface. So that's not good for the structure. So we need to make sure the transition areas need to be as smooth as possible. And sorry for the second question. What was the question?
What is the geometrical restriction if you merge the 2 structures?
Yeah, so in this case, the lattice structures was around 30 centimeters with the length, also the height and the width, if I'm not wrong. So we have 5 unit cells. So we determine those numbers of unit cells. So to be able to minimize the boundary effect of the lattice structures, because if we have too few of the unit cells, it will have a huge boundary effect. So that may have the result, may have influenced the result very much. So we designed based on the numbers that we can minimize the boundary effect of the lattice structure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marks, please.
Hello, thanks very much for your presentation. My question is regarding this size effect, for example, have you considered doing some specimens with a little bit more bigger, let's say, more cells units, and see if the size effect is something that your model, for example, can predict, or
You seeing the sliding effect?
size?
Size effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's a good question, and that's actually one of my well, actually my main topic for my PhD is the size effect of the lattice structures. But in this work, since we had many arrangements, topological arrangements already, so we haven't considered the size. For example, we can print very small ones and large ones to see what are the differences. So the focus of this work is not for the size effect, but for the different topological arrangements of the lattice.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have one question. You have shown different applications at the very beginning, and then you have studied different topological arrangements. Have you tried and assign to every topological arrangement if it's sufficient, let's say, for a certain application?
Yeah, we haven't tried those things for the real application. It's just more like, okay, we know the lattice structures has a very good potentials, and the images I showed earlier has already been implemented in the industry already, right? But I mean, we have many different lattice structure, for example, gyro, primitive, or other things. But there are very few articles about or the application about, okay, what if we combine those two lattices together? Like, is it going to achieve better mechanical properties than the single lattice, or is it worse? Or what are the arrangements for that? Is it better with the transition along the height, or transition along the width, or is it transition along the diagonal? So we don't know yet. So that's the purpose of this research. Yeah.
Interesting. I think.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So thank you again.